Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Andrew, and we're both been living here in Poland for a long time. We're native speakers of the English language, or we like to think we are.
It started that way.
How it will end is another story. But today we're going to be talking about roads.
Roads, streets, alleys, etc.
And so forth.
Yes.
And this is an extremely emotional topic for Polish people, because they always told us at the beginning, when we first came here 15, 20 years ago.
Not 20, not yet.
Okay, not
yet.
15 years ago, when I first came to this portion of the world, that all our roads are terrible. But let's start out with the vocabulary, and let's try to translate some of these concepts, which are very Polish, very European, into English. So
All
other
right,
people.
let's give it a go.
All right, let's start with the easy one. Droga.
Droga, road.
Road.
Right, just
but
a road.
Don't be confused, because road can also be, droga can also be expensive or dear if you're learning Polish, just to confuse you. But as a noun, droga, of course, just means road. That's pretty easy, right?
I think so. Yeah, and it's kind of a general term too for road. I mean, you know, when you're talking sort of, not literally about a road, but like, you know, the road to happiness and such.
Oh, that's right.
You know, you would use the road.
You also
droga.
say po drodze. How would you say that?
On the way,
right? In English, you would say way.
Yeah, on the way.
So it's a little bit different. So in English, we don't use road as much. We would say way a little bit more. One way, for example.
One way.
Right?
Or it's on the way. Oh,
on the way.
So it's, I guess, not. It's when you're talking figuratively about roads and paths.
It might not be used as much as it is in Polish.
Yeah.
But the word is road.
Road.
The next one we have, of course, is quite easy. Everybody knows it. Ulica.
Ulica, right? And so that's a street, and that's generally when you have it'll be Ulica and then the name of the street.
Yeah, in English it's the opposite, of course, right?
Right,
you would say first, for example, first street.
First street, right.
You would say Washington Road, Washington Street.
Yeah.
Which is simple. But my question with Ulica is a little bit difficult, because not Ulica, it would be
on the street.
On the street, but in British English they would say in the street.
They still used to say in the street, in the road.
In the road, right? Which you cannot say in American English. I live in the road.
We say across the street, and they'll say over the road. Even if it's, not a road, it's clearly a street, they'll say it's over the road,
So there's a little bit of confusion here.
Yeah.
But in Polish you have na ulica and przy ulica, which is more official sounding.
Right.
Przy ulica sounds. But in English, American English, typically we say I live on
such and such street.
And it's
right.
quite easy.
Yeah.
In British English, in the street. But in American English, of course, in the street would mean that you don't have a house.
You're literally hanging out, on the sidewalk in a tent or something. But but if you live in such and such a street.
Now we're going to move on to fancy roads, and that's aleja.
Yes.
Aleja, which, does that mean anything to you? Does it give you a different feel to it?
Is that the same as an avenue?
I think so, but is avenue any different
because
in
it's
America?
Aleja Parkowa for Park Avenue, right?
Park Avenue, or Parkway, you could say,
Parkway.
or Boulevard.
Because an avenue and a parkway, a parkway is more.
But I mean, I lived in
road
suburban
traffic,
New York,
right?
and there was no difference between an avenue, a road, and a street. Nobody said, "Oh, I live on an avenue. That means there's a median in between."
Yeah, there's a median in between, two ways, and a median in between. That's my understanding.
That's your understanding.
Yeah.
So aleja is quite simple.
Yeah.
It's avenue. It's quite easy.
Avenue. Yeah.
All right.
But is there a little bit of a false friend issue because it sounds like alley?
And that's not good. You cannot use alley, because alley would mean more like Zaułek.
Zaułek.
Right, or uliczka. Like it sounds, you remember those American movies, and that's where the trash comes to collect stuff, where people are out smoking.
And
right, in an alleyway.
Isn't that like a cul-de-sac or something?
It could be a cul-de-sac. So Zaułek, just to make things more confusing, could be cul-de-sac or dead end.
It could be a dead end, or what is that called? That's called
Ślepa
a
ulica.
ślepa ulica. So you have this like a blind street. So they differ a little bit. You can't directly
But please remember, the most
most
important is, as Amanda said, is that alley is not the same word as aleja.
Yeah, it's a completely different. When you think of an alley and you think of an avenue, I mean, they're not even close. So don't mix those up, because it's confusing.
All right, so let's talk about what certain signs or certain things that you'd find. For example, Objazd.
Objazd.
Which would simply be detour. So you will see a detour. Now, are there detour signs in the United States? Is it quite common?
Detour.
It is?
Yeah.
Because here in Poland, I always find it's completely complicated. The Objazd, and you just have to go around, and they show you a huge sign, and then you're supposed to study the sign. Luckily today we have GPS, so it's not too difficult if it's updated. But detour is the word. Detour. There's a detour. Now we have all of these with Wjazd, of course, which just makes things terribly complicated for us because it all looks the same as a non-native Polish speaker. So you have Wjazd, which is exit.
Exit, and then.
But exit can be, of course, for people walking out of the store exit, as well as on the highway, right? On a road, you say, oh, the exit, get off the first exit on highway.
From the highway, there's a highway exit, and then there's exits, general exits.
From the parking lot.
Right,
car park. But we'll talk about those things. But we also have Wjazd, which would be entrance.
And Wjazd, oh, that confused me for you. I couldn't get in my head the difference between enter and exit. I mix them constantly. You know, and you see them together all the time, so it's really
Wjazd
easy.
and Wjazd, right? So,
and they almost look the same and sound the same. So
and
you
when
just
you're
have
driving
to
as quickly
right.
as you do here. Yeah, but of course. But you also have Wjazd, which is another word for exit.
Exit. Like, and you know, the Z helps you because you know that means out.
So of course, yeah. So
that always helps me. I'm like, oh, that's an out. Okay, yes.
Well, that's the same with Wjazd and Wjazd, right?
Wjazd and Wjazd. And you just have to...
Horrible. English is so much better. Exit, entrance, simple, easy.
Thankfully, exit also exists in many places. You see exit just as easily as you would see Wjazd, right? Or,
so it helps us still
it does
today.
help. You kind of, okay, exit.
You have to do a double take. Wjazd, okay, Wjazd. Yeah, but it is quite difficult for us
15 years and I think I've got it.
All right. Now we have this strange word that I really don't like is
Jezdnia.
Yeah.
Jezdnia.
And that's like pavement, surface, road surface.
To me, that seems like it's a track for something that's not part of the
normal road. Well, they'll say that it's
right?
uneven, for example.
Yeah.
Or because we live in Silesia, there's been damage to the city and the road has been a bit damaged.
Yeah.
So be careful. This is the whole thing of that you will talk about asphalt or Asfaltowa Droga, right? And we don't use this asphalt as much, do we?
Not in a road that you would actually have a lot of traffic on, I don't think, because asphalt, you know, you might use for driveways or something, but... Really?
Because I thought...
I mean, those asphalt roads fall apart practically...
maybe it's the terminology is not correct, but we would say paved road.
A paved road,
road.
Pavement.
But can I use pavement? Because I've seen it also that you would say, for example, with Jezdnia, that you would say, oh, that's a pavement. But you can't. You would have to say the road surface.
The road surface. See, and then you have this thing of pavement. Like if you're going to go back to the British English, they talk about the pavement as a sidewalk.
Well, that's Chodnik, right? That's about Chodnik.
And so, but if somebody's talking about a pavement or something, you know, and you start to get mixed up with what do you mean by a pavement? Not a sidewalk, a paved road.
That's right. So you have paved road, then you have pavement. But the paved road means that it actually has some blacktop, tarmac, asphalt, something is there.
Because I guess, you know, it's
for cars.
You have roads that are just, you know, I guess if you're going, you know, in the mountains or something where they're rock or dirt or
gravel.
Gravel. You get a lot of that, you know.
But yes, so we would say paved and unpaved roads.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to do it.
Right.
I think if you focus on that, you can say the road surface is not good, the surface of the road is not good.
Right.
I think would be the easiest.
If there's a problem with it.
And then if you're in the older cities, you'll have this Wybrukowana, right?
There's like the cobblestone or the brick. Yeah, cobblestone, I guess, for roads.
For the most part, right? Cobblestones. Could you use anything else?
A brick road. You call it a brick road, I guess.
It could be.
Yeah.
But then is that brick and one is cobble? There's a difference between...
I don't know, because some of them look like brick to me. I'm not the person to ask about the details of this
I think you get away with cobblestone.
Yeah, cobblestone.
People will know cobblestone.
Everybody knows what it means. You've seen it somewhere and you know what it is.
In the movies for us Americans.
Yeah, I mean, I think they pave over a lot of that stuff though.
But here in Poland, you do still have a lot of cobblestone roads, these old roads.
Or now you'll even see roads that are falling apart with the cobblestone underneath it coming back up. So you know it was originally cobblestone, right?
Black topped up, right? With that tarmac or asphalt, whatever term you like to use or what happens to be correct. Now we have Brukowiec, of course, which is a little bit connected to this.
The curb, right?
No, Brukowiec though is tabloid.
Tabloid.
Yeah, it's when they're talking about like trashy magazines.
Okay. And so
it's connected to this. I think they sold these garbage magazines out in the time, like you would have tabloid. But where does tabloid come from in English? It's such a weird word.
A tabloid. I don't even know. I never thought about it.
But it's not connected to the road.
No, not that I can. No, I don't know what that means.
Okay.
So anyway, okay, so...
Let's move on, because we've talked about the roads, the paved roads, the unpaved roads, the sidewalk or pavement, if you're British, pavement, of course. And then in between the two, you have Krawężnik, yes?
Okay.
And that you would call the curb, right?
Curb, well, so that's the curb. Yeah, on the...
Curb,
right. So it's like on the...
On the edge.
On the edge, yeah, the edge of the sidewalk, I suppose, the curb.
The curb.
Yeah.
So it's typically you have the sidewalk, you have a little bit of grass in between, in the United States, at least suburban
Yeah, you
America,
could or not, depending. Yeah.
Depending, and then you'll have the curb. Now in British English, I think they still spell it K-E-R-B.
Maybe.
And it looks really strange to me.
Yeah, it looks like it's from some other language or something, but...
From Scotland or somewhere.
Maybe.
But we would say curb, on the curb. Don't park on the curb. Park as close as you can to the curb as possible. Right, so curb.
Yeah.
All right. Then the one that I absolutely hate is Skrzyzowanie. Now, I have so many ways of translating this word. Now, what one is correct, of course?
Well, an intersection.
Intersection
crossing,
is easy.
Right?
Crossing?
Well, a Skrzyzowanie would be the two roads meet and you have a place where you cross. See, I don't like to call it that, because that to me is specifically for people walking, for pedestrians. But I would call it an intersection.
You're talking about the zebra crossing.
Yeah.
But I like intersection. It's just the easiest.
It's obvious to me what it is.
But some people then say like crossroads. That doesn't work for me. That sounds like 18th century.
Yeah.
And much more poetic.
Much more
because
poetic.
Because they say drodze, right, is what they say. Like at the crossroads. I'm at a certain point of life. I'm at the crossroads. But if you say I was driving and I was at the crossroads, it sounds a bit confusing. To me. But maybe in British English it's acceptable?
That's used as a name, actually, as a place name. When I guess there's a major intersection somewhere, you could say at the crossroads. I mean, I like intersection better.
I live next to a crossroad.
No, I live
near the intersection.
Yeah.
Where Park Avenue intersects first.
I live at the corner of such and such and such. I live at the corner of Vishlan and Gałęzice or whatever.
All right, so intersection.
Yeah. Yes.
Intersection, all right. And then we get onto really controversial topics, and that is Autostrada.
Autostrada. So apparently people have big feelings about whether you call it a highway or not.
Of course, first let's just get through the basics.
Yeah.
Highway, American English, for the most part. Although the British do use highway sometimes, I've heard them. And then there's motorway, which they use for the limited access highways that is the Autostrada. But in American English, we use highway for everything.
Highway for everything, I guess, unless you're on some,
dinky,
even if it's
small
a toll road or something.
Turnpike?
But
nobody says, oh, you're on a causeway, a parkway.
Yeah. A turnpike. I think the turnpike, isn't that the specific road? It's called, like the Pennsylvania Turnpike or something.
New Jersey Turnpike.
Is the New Jersey Turnpike. I mean, but in other parts of the country, they don't call them turnpikes.
It's a regional thing.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we would say highway. But what about interstate?
Interstate? Well, that to me is just a big highway that runs through a bunch of states.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's the old concept since the 50s. But can I say, I don't know, can I say, it's an intervoivodeship? Or would you be able to say
No, I don't think that works here. You just say the
highway,
Autostrada, or...
Well, let's move on to a regional topic, because this gets really, really confusing, because you can say highway for everything. In Poland, you have drogi, special ones for krajowe,
krajowe,
and then they say, we have county roads, we have state roads, but we'll say highway for the most part. And then if it's federal, then we'll say interstate highway, or on the interstate.
Well, they use this krajowe, and then they have numbers.
Well, then it's red, and then there's the yellow one, which is from the voivodeship. But for the most part, then I get really, really hung up on this one, DTŠ.
Okay.
Where?
Yeah, but
which, of course, the DTŠ means droga trasowa, strednicowa, something like that, right? Strednicówka, DTŠka. They use so many different terms for this.
That's my favorite one. Yeah.
But it's right next to us. It goes right through Silesia. Right now it goes from Katowice all the way to Gliwice.
Right.
Supposedly it will go to Zagłębie as well. Now, What do we call this thing? Because I call it a highway and people say, no, 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 it's not a highway. Do not call it a highway. A highway is the A1, A4.
Right, the national, the numbered ones. I don't know why they don't call it a highway. To me, it functions as a highway too.
I think it's because it's different construction. The civil engineering is quite different. Because when you get in, it's controlled. Okay. In comparison, it's just, you have your intersection, you just get in from Świętochłowice, for example, close to where we live. And you just go on. And then with a highway, you have all of these entrance ramps, and it's much more complicated.
Is that really the difference? Is that why people don't want you to call it a highway? Because
I think that, and the amount of traffic and the rules and regulations, it's too confusing for me to understand.
Okay, well.
So can I call it a dual carriageway? That's what my compromise has been. A dual carriageway.
You can.
But nobody's going to remember that.
Yeah, no.
A dual carriageway. But does that mean anything to you? Because you sometimes hear it. Well, in everyday language, I don't think it means anything. Maybe if you're an expert in logistics, it does. Right, a dual carriageway, or you can't have certain trucks on this. There may be certain terminology that we just don't know as everyday native speakers who aren't specialized in transport or transportation. Right? Yeah. Okay, just moving on to make things even more complicated. If you move on to the beautiful city of Chorzów, there is the famous Estakada. Right. Now, what do you call that ugly thing that flies over the market square? Can I call it a flyover?
No.
That sounds very British to me.
No, and I don't think that's not a thing. I think, is that a thing even?
They use flyover, yeah. A trestle?
A trestle? I would just call it it's kind of like an overpass.
Overpass, that's what I would say.
I mean,
overpass.
Flyover to me is like something you would actually do in a plane. You do a.
Oh no, but I think the British do use flyover for overpass.
For that, okay. So, we need a Brit to comment on the page. If you know a Brit, get them to write some comments because we don't actually know what we're talking about.
But for the most part, Estakada, you could say. What was the word? Overpass. Thank you. Overpass would be the easiest one.
Right.
All right. But what about trestle? Because train trestle and that. Because everybody calls when you go, for example, Chorzów Batory, or you're going through Katowice and you're going from one section to the other. They would say the tunnel. But would we say tunnel in English? You're going through the tunnel, or would you say under the train trestle? Because I keep saying under the train trestle, and everyone ignores me. Or should I just keep going with tunnel?
I would. Well, you know what? If you. God.
Because tunnel to me means, for example, when you're in the center of Katowice and you're going through a tunnel 600 meters.
An actual tunnel, that's not an actual tunnel. I guess you perceive it as a tunnel when you're underneath it, but it's not a tunnel. Yeah. It's
so would you say train trestle or would you say tunnel? I mean,
I suppose if you're referring to the structure above in the actual, big picture, it's a train trestle. If you are in the perspective of the person in the actual hole that it creates, you will be in a tunnel. Yes.
Okay. So we'll stick with tunnel just to make Paul's lives easier.
Yes.
But for the most part, I'm still going to say train trestle, and when it's a tunnel, it's a tunnel. Now that brings us to Rondo, which is the centerpiece
of our fair Katowice. And
exactly. Rondo, which is a nice word. It sounds nice. It's so international sounding. But we Americans never had those things for the longest time, at least.
No.
And what do we call it? People call it almost everything.
Well, I guess you could call it. Would an American know? Would an American call it a roundabout?
I think we could get away with saying roundabout.
Yeah.
You might have to explain to some of us who don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have them everywhere you look in the United States, like
to here,
right?
For example. But yeah, for the most part, you do have roundabouts in America, but we do call them. In America, I thought we called them rotaries.
Rotaries. I've never heard that.
You weren't ready for that.
No, because to me that's an old-timey telephone that you actually turn a dial on.
So you're not going for rotary.
You kids have never seen one, have you?
But okay, the rotary is the concept that you rotate around something, typically clockwise, unless you're British.
Right.
If you go counter or anti-clockwise. But for the most part, rotary. Could you say traffic circle? Lots of people are going for traffic circle.
Traffic circle? No, I've never heard of a traffic circle in my life.
Of that? People say, when you get to the circle, one of my friends gets upset with that.
When you get to the circle?
Yeah, when you get to the circle, traffic circle.
To the traffic circle.
Okay, stick with roundabout. Amanda's not going for any of my options.
I'm not going to call it a traffic circle. That just sounds a little dumbed down for me. Like, I can just retain, rondo or roundabout and use it.
Rondo,
But I think I've lived here so long that I think of that thing as the rondo.
Yeah, but that's quintessential. So where the tunnel is underneath the roundabout. Katowice is a roundabout. You can get away with saying.
Right.
With an art gallery there. But maybe because it's so famous, you could get away with calling it Rondo, Katowice is Rondo. But for the most part, I would say roundabouts in most towns.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, there's the one that I have a lot of problems with too, is parking.
Parking.
In which people say all the time to me, oh, I was in parking, which means nothing to me. You can't. You have to say parking lot.
Well, I think they use this word parking, which is very good if you need to quickly orient where to park. But they mean a parking lot or a parking garage or a parking place.
Or British English, you cannot forget car park.
Car park, right.
Car park.
Right.
But parkowania is parking.
Yes.
So that's kind of a little bit of a false front. Because when you say parkowania, you're meaning that is parking. I'm parking, or parking is difficult in the city center. But if you're talking about, I couldn't find a parking space.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a parking place.
Well, in Polish, would you say I couldn't find parking? Would you say that?
No, I think what they say for the most part is like parking is located in this area.
Okay.
But you would say more or less there's a parking lot, there's I don't know, there's a good place to park.
Yes, parking too. You would say, and I think if you said yes, parking, somebody would say, oh, there must be a lot, a parking lot, or a paid parking.
A car park.
Car park, yeah, an actual building, or something. A parking, yeah.
But it is rather confusing because for Europeans, for the most part, they drive a little bit differently. They have more regulations, or at least they're conscious of their regulations. They have a horrible exam that they need to take. And we Americans, we're a bit more casual, I feel, with driving.
Well,
we do have automatic.
We learn it younger. For one thing, you kind of, and depending on where you live, most Americans have to learn how to drive to function.
That's right.
You don't have to drive to function here in most places, unless you're out in the country or something. But I mean,
we don't have as many pedestrians walking. We don't have as much public transportation or public transport, as they say in British.
Yeah.
And it makes things a little bit easier, and we're not as condensed for the most part. So there are larger spaces. So a parking lot is tremendously large, and it's easier to find parking.
Generally so, yeah.
A parking place, sorry.
A parking place, a parking spot.
Parking spot.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it. I hope this helps you somewhat. It does bring this controversy at least to a new level.
Controversial topics we touch on here.
That's right.
We're going to be getting all the hate mail from the
But
DTS
for the most part, I hope
folks.
that you feel a little bit more comfortable with these words, and that you avoid some of those false friends, and that you're able to communicate with native speakers or other people who use English in a more comfortable manner, so you don't get confused as we do with Polish.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
All right, all the best. Take care, and look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.